I would say a significant number, if not a majority, of people who think socialism is some horrible, repressive system actually have no idea what socialism actually is, and they have their understanding of what socialism is from sources such as Fox News or the US government or State Department, when actually existing socialism in different places around the world takes on different forms. So, for example, Cuba is a socialist country just off the coast of the US, coast of Florida, 90-mile short plane ride or boat ride to get there. And they've been a socialist country, had a socialist government since the revolution in 1959, which overthrew the US-backed dictator by the name of Batista. And they have things in that country under very difficult economic conditions because of the US blockade since the socialist revolution. They have universal health care, meaning everybody there has access to health care. There's no such thing as medical bankruptcy. People aren't dying because they're delaying getting medical care because of the cost of it, right? Tens of thousands of people die in the United States each year due to lack of insurance or being underinsured. It's not a problem there. And again, this is under some very difficult economic conditions that a huge part of those are because of the US blockade, which makes it very, very difficult for the country of Cuba to trade with others because of the designation of them as a state-sponsored terrorism, which started under Trump and Biden has continued. They also have universal education. So people in Cuba are able to pursue education through university, either for professional development, to attain certain careers, or just for personal fulfillment, which I think is really amazing. People being able to pursue education, because I think having a educated populace is actually a good thing. And then they can do that and not be shackled with tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt. They also have a political system. Yes, it is a one-party state, but much the similar thing could be said about China, which is you can't change the party, but you can change the policy, right? In the US, you have two ruling parties that serve the interests of the owning class, of the very wealthy. Obviously, I'm referring to the Democrats and Republicans. So you could change the D or the R, the policy is not going to change, as we've seen from Trump to Biden, and then from going from Biden to Trump now, right? Things are largely going to stay the same. Cuba, they actually have a government there that listens to the interest of the working people, because it's a government for the working people, by the working people. It just the contrasts are just so stark. And again, what they've been able to accomplish, this relatively small island nation that's been under brutal economic, political, and at times military blockade from the United States, and they have things in that country which are a lot lower level of development, and again, a huge chunk of that's due to the blockade, but they have things here that we don't in the United States, in this capitalist bourgeoisie, liberal democracy or republic. Think about that. So you're taught to hate socialism and socialist countries by the corporate media and the owning class, why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Because then maybe like, oh, okay, this socialism thing doesn't sound so bad. Having a government that actually listens to the wants and the voices of the people that they're supposed to be governing for. We don't have that here. There's been research that shows if a policy is supported by a majority, even a large majority of people in the US, there's no correlation for our so-called elective representatives supporting that policy. They only support policies that the donor class supports, that the capitalist class supports, not what the average working person like me and you supports, okay? It's totally different in Cuba and other socialist countries because, again, the whole point of socialism is to bring up the level of development in that society and use that wealth that's generated through that process to increase the standard of living for people. It's completely different. Capitalist system, you may have very high levels of development, but that development is not used to meet the needs of the working people, the people actually creating that wealth. No, it's extracted to them and given to the capitalist class. That is the surplus labor theory of value by Marx, which I just, not as eloquently explained as, Marx could, but that's what that is. That's why in the US you have, very high levels of development, and then you still have hundreds of thousands of people homeless because that development, again, is used to make profit as opposed to a socialist system where you get rid of that profit motive and you use the wealth that's generated to actually meet the needs of the people. And you can have a centrally planned economy that's, again, very well thought out, rational, reasonable plan to make sure you're taking care of the needs of the people as well as looking after things like the environment, which China has taken into more account of recently in their economic planning, and Xi Jinping has remarked as such because they are reaching a fairly high level of development. They've lifted 850 million people out of poverty, out of extreme poverty. 850 million people, right? It's the greatest poverty alleviation program in the history of the world. Okay, so the reason you hate socialism is because of the propaganda that you have been fed in utero about it, and you don't really actually understand what it is. And the capitalist class, the ruling class, the oppressive class wants you to think and feel that way about it because they don't want you to realize that a better world is possible. They want things to remain how it is. They're doing very well then in the status quo while the working class isn't, but they want you to believe you're much closer to becoming a billionaire than you are to, the homeless person on the street, when you're much, much closer to being the latter. When it's in the United States, half or more of the people here can't afford a $500, emergency expense in the wealthiest country that the world has ever known. Again, because it's the people at the very top control the wealth, control the government, control the media, and it's a very corrupt system that, again, is only designed to make profit, not actually designed to meet the needs of the people, as opposed to socialist countries like Cuba, like China, like the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, etc., etc. So a lot to unlearn and unpack when you have been living in the belly of the beast. Peace. Much love.